I'm really interested in why you chose tonight's film, The Razor's Edge.
Well, Beau Geste was the first film I ever saw, and that was, in a way, was a wonderful, wonderful thing that happened because it was starring Gary Cooper, who I think was one of the most magnificent creatures that God ever put breath into, and he was the star of my first movie, and so it was a kind of secret, but I just wanted to be like him. And so for the first sort of 7 or 8 years, I wanted to join the Foreign Legion and, meet Coop, And then I saw The Razor's Edge, and then I saw East of Eden. So when I was asked to do this epiphany, I've always found with things like this, it's good to tell the absolute truth. Because if you don't, you can come really unstuck, So I gave the BFI, Beau Geste, Razor's Edge, and East of Eden. And East of Eden was too long. And they couldn't find a print of The Razor's Edge. Then they found a print of Beau Geste. So I figured I could wing that, But I was actually really happy when they found a good print of Razor's Edge because the thing that separates Razor's Edge from the other two is that it not only kind of it changed my life in a way that I was kind of unaware of.
The character in the film, played by Tyrone Power, is a character who, is basically growing up in the context of conformity, and is very changed by a wartime experience, and that's when we sort of meet him, and is really having an existential crisis and yearning for more. I think that's the state in which we find him initially in the film. And was it that drew you to the film? Was it that?
No.
Yeah.
It was much more plebeian than that. Where I lived, which was somewhere called Plaistow, there were 4 cinemas. One was called the Green Gate, and that was really we regard it as a flea pit. And then the one up from a flea pit was called the Old Grand, that was in Barking Road. And then there was a pretty good one called the Granada, which was in East Ham. And then but Upton Park, which was still there, it's just down from where West Ham play football. But it's now it's like Little Bombay now, Plaistow. So the Odeon is like a Bollywood, they only show like Indian movies there, But when I was a boy, I could only really afford to go to the Odeon for Saturday morning pictures, because that was 6pence. But any other film that was on there, I couldn't afford.
Yeah.
So what happened with The Razor's Edge was that my Uncle Harry, who was a bachelor, he was like the only boy with all my aunts, and for some reason, he took me to see this film called The Razor's Edge. I don't know why. I can't remember going to the cinema with him before or after. But he took me to the Odeon, which was like a picture palace, frankly. And I saw this film. Now, I really want to be honest. I don't want to give you the wrong impression, because I didn't understand it at all. All I knew was I wanted to be Tyrone Power and marry Gene Tierney.
Well, is this where I confess that this morning I had to post that I was having a wardrobe crisis because I was going to be on stage with you and before Gene Tierney wears all those amazing frocks in this film.
Yeah. So it was like, it's the first, obviously after I'd seen Beau Geste, as soon as I was old enough, which, when I was very mature, I was like a mature 7 or 8 year old. My mother always said I had an old head on young shoulders, so I was addicted to the cinema. But that Razor's Edge was the first film that I can really have a total recall about after Beau Geste. So in my memory bank, there was Beau Geste, it was my first movie, and then there was The Razor's Edge. Now, when I saw The Razor's Edge, I was very kind of affected by it. But I didn't know enough to kind of ask my Uncle Harry anything, you know. I didn't, and I told all the boys, you know, who used to make camps, and we just, you know, when there was like a big cat come in, we would all run, you know. So it wasn't until I was about 15 or 16, and there was a big party, and anybody who was fit enough was invited. And I went to see another showing, and I realized that I was just kind of like, I knew I would never really be like Tyrone Power, you know, but at the same time, I had a much more grown-up feeling for the girl, you know. So that was the kind of second time I've seen it.
And have you seen it subsequently? Is it a film that you've revisited many times?
Yes.
I'm interested if you've, you know, are there elements in the performances, for example, that you might have taken away as an actor and thought about?
Well, on the third time I saw it, I saw Herbert Marshall. And Herbert Marshall was like, he was something that was just kind of very inspiring, because he was saying things that I didn't fully understand, but like I understood a little bit, you know. And it was through kind of listening to him that I began to understand like what the whole film was about. And when I was, I guess when I was about 18, I thought to myself, I heard it was a book. And I realized that the character, that in the screenplay, the person that Herbert Marshall played was the Somerset Maugham character. So I was living in a basement with two other would-be actors at the time in Harley Street, and we belonged to that big library on the main road, you know. And so I got the book of Razor's Edge, and I read it, but I didn't kind of fathom anything. So I thought to myself, like, whatever the Tyrone Power character was talking about in the film, it wasn't in the film. Like, he never really spoke about what it was that had changed his life. And when I read the Somerset Maugham novel, it wasn't in there either. So it was just kind of like, it was just kind of a movie. It was a movie that I'd loved,